One of the things that makes people absolutely hate their job is their boss. In 2018, Spanner conducted a study that found that 40% of British workers dislike their bosses and felt that they could probably do a better job than their boss. This was a small study done in one country, but what are the chances that the same result would reflect in other countries? We'd say highly likely. The things that make people really dislike their superiors are micromanagement, inconsistency in goals and direction, or perhaps even no goals and direction altogether, a failure to lead by example, poor decision making, unprofessional behavior, lack of recognition, or especially when their boss takes a one-size-fits-all approach when in reality individuals are different and nuanced. There is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to people. Dealing with each of these qualities in your boss may require specific strategies, but it's always better to take a principled approach rather than a case-by-case one. Unless of course your boss exhibits grossly unprofessional behavior, in that case your only solution may be to pay HR a little visit. But our aim is that by the end of this video, you'll have a principled approach to dealing with your difficult boss, and hopefully you might even win them over and get them on your side. Something that is common not just among employees but among human beings is the inclination to question the decisions made by those in leadership positions. The decisions they make for us that affect us. In 1975, a theory as to why this is the case was brought to light: implicit leadership theory. Implicit leadership theory is a cognitive theory that sheds light on how we perceive and interpret leadership. It concluded that we all have certain characteristics and inherent traits that we do expect to see in our leaders. As people, we share many of these expectations, such as that a leader should be charismatic, sensitive, dedicated, and intelligent. However, we do vary in our expectations depending on the leaders we have been exposed to and appreciated throughout our lifetime. One employee may have had parents who were disciplinarians, and thus they expect the same of their leaders, and may even become a disciplinarian when they become a leader. Another employee may have had parents who were very liberal and allowed great freedom of expression and decision-making autonomy in the home. They may expect these same qualities from their leaders and even exhibit them when they become a leader. The more we understand that leadership styles vary and that there are deeply implanted reasons as to why our leaders or bosses make the decisions they do, the less we may question their decisions. We need to understand that these variations in individual leadership styles are opportunities for us to learn from their strengths and their mistakes, equipping us to be better leaders when our time comes. So if you find yourself questioning the decisions that your bosses make, devote some mental currency to trying to understand why they made that decision. Perhaps you don't even have as full a picture of the surrounding circumstances as they may have. Aim to understand and find answers to your questions so that you can learn and apply the lessons from their mistakes when your time with leadership comes. There is no complaint more common than the complaint that bosses micromanage. Micromanaging manifests itself in constant oversight, resistance to delegating work, lack of trust, obsession over minor details, and criticism of small mistakes. While these signs can indicate micromanagement, they may also be part of a leadership style for other reasons. Regardless, if you are feeling micromanaged by your boss, you want solutions. You want a principled approach to dealing with the boss who micromanages. One of the primary reasons that bosses do micromanage is because they fear that individuals lack the necessary skill, ability, or responsibility to handle a given task effectively or the way that they want it done. Which is why all employees should take personal responsibility and accountability for their duties. This means that even though your boss might give you a task, you don't view it as a task that you're doing for your boss. You view the manner in which it's done, the outcome, and the success of the task as a personal reflection of you as an individual. The more responsibility you take, the more likely you are to really give it your all. and the lesser the chances of being micromanaged. Why? Because your boss will know that they don't ever have to worry that they cannot count on you, because you aren't even giving them an inkling of a reason to think that may be the case. So what happens when a boss fails to lead by example? When they're a do as I say, not as I do kind of boss. Generally, what happens when a leader isn't exemplary is that everyone else follows suit. So everyone begins to be like the leader who is setting a poor example. One of the reasons for this is what psychologists call heuristics. Think of heuristics as mental shortcuts. All humans have an inclination toward taking the path of least resistance, shortcuts. This manifests itself in the workplace. When the leader sets a poor example, the shortcut is to simply follow along and avoid the resistance of acting differently. However, if the leader decided to set a good example instead, the path of least resistance would be to follow the leader. To remedy a leader who is not exemplary, the best thing you can do is to behave as you would if you were the leader. This doesn't mean being presumptuous and forcing yourself into board meetings where you don't have the authority to do so. This principle means setting the positive example that your leader isn't, like being on time for work, being diligent in your work, greeting everyone in the office and checking on how they're doing. Become exemplary. Remember the heuristics idea? What would be the path of least resistance for your boss? To ask you to stop setting a good example and doing the right things? Or to leave you to be exemplary and perhaps even follow your example as a non-appointed leader? Leaders don't need a title. They don't even need to be appointed as a leader. Leaders are people who others are willing to follow. So you can become someone who others are willing to and should follow. You don't have to allow a poor leader to dictate how you feel and act. Positive qualities and behavior have a ripple effect. Be the stone that's thrown in the water. Initiate the ripple effect. Aim to understand and find answers to your questions so that you can learn and apply the lessons from the mistakes of your leaders when your time for leadership comes. Take personal responsibility and accountability. Behave as you would if you were the leader, so that when your time comes to be a leader, when your time comes to be a boss, you can be the boss that you wish you had. If you have any topics you'd like us to cover next, let us know in the comments.